Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of Wiltfong Whiparound. I'm Grace Remington with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, and we are kicking things off in this episode with the top recruit in the 2024 class, and that, of course, is quarterback Dylan Raiola. Now, even though we're in the recruiting dead period, he was able to visit Nebraska this weekend, and that's because his uncle is the O-line coach for the team. So, Steve, kind of explain that loophole in the recruiting process here, and what did you hear about the trip?
Well, it was a boys' weekend in Lincoln. Dylan, his brother, his dad, went out to visit his uncle Donovan, who's the offensive line coach for the Huskers. And their time spent together included the Nebraska basketball game where Dylan was serenaded by Husker students, and then other fans joined in, showing how much affection and love they have for him and how much they want him to play his college football in Lincoln. I talked to Dylan Saturday night, and he said he never experienced anything close to that. Those fans are the best, and they've always showed my family love. It means a lot. It's a blessing to be able to experience these fans at these games. They always show out for their Husker sports. It's a great sight to see. Nebraska is one of the top schools for Dylan Raiola. He's going to be back on campus the weekend of March 24th. That's going to be a massive recruiting weekend for Matt Rule and company. And I think he's strongly considering a future playing at his dad's alma mater. Obviously, it's well documented. His dad was the Remington Trophy winner there. His numbers retired before his long NFL career. They've been in Lincoln a ton. And it's a place where it was a glimpse for Dylan of what it would look like if he went to school there. Just the love that community has for his family and him. Matt Rule went out there in January. Then the next week, 9 assistant coaches go by the school in Phoenix. So they're recruiting them as hard as any program. And there's a lot of excitement around Nebraska football. I think Nebraska football is going to be successful no matter what under Matt Rule and company. But if you add Dylan Raiola to the mix, how high could they go? It's very exciting potential right now at Nebraska. Yeah, but they're not the only program in the mix here still. He talks to Mike Bobo at Georgia every day, talks to Lincoln Riley at USC every day. He's lining up his spring visits right now, in addition to that return to Nebraska later in March. The next visit's going to be Georgia. And he was at USC in January, and they're going to get back. He does his quarterback training in Los Angeles. And look, there's reasons why I think he could end up at Nebraska, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he still ended up at Georgia and USC. And I think that even though Nebraska is doing a terrific job recruiting Dylan Raiola, and he's feeling the love, and he's building a relationship with Matt Rule and company, and they just had a tremendous weekend there. And his uncle, who worked under the previous staff, now working under Matt Rule and company, he talking to his uncle, he said his uncle's pumped. They're ready to put the work in under the new staff. They know what it takes. And a lot of great guys in the building, and that Nebraska will be back. And again, he likes Rule, he likes Satterfield, but talking to Bobo every day, Georgia was the first school to recruit Dylan Raiola. They're going to be back in Athens sometime soon. And then USC and Lincoln Riley's track record with quarterbacks and how, proximity to home from Phoenix to Los Angeles. USC has a lot going for it in this recruitment as well. And then there's other programs in the mix still swinging, from Michigan to Colorado to certainly Oregon. So Dylan Raiola, ever since the decommitment from Ohio State, opened his process. And even though we've only mentioned a few schools prominently, he's still talking to several programs here at this point in his process.
Well, if he likes the serenading from fans, I think he'll get that no matter which school he picks. From the top quarterback in the country to the top running back, Jarrett Gibson out of IMG Academy, the Gainesville, Florida native, decommitted from the Gators about a year ago. Now he has 4 official visits in the works. And Steve, you put in a crystal ball for him this morning. Where's he leaning?
Well, I feel like we've been talking about Jarrett Gibson for years. Florida was first to offer him when they had him in camp. Then he came back for Friday Night Lights the next month and committed early. Obviously, he reopened his process and is one of the most coveted players in the country, regardless of position. You have Alabama, you have Georgia, you have Florida, you have Miami, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, all contenders for him going into the spring, summer, where he's lining up visits to those programs mentioned. But I really like where Texas stands for Jarrett Gibson at this point in the process. And with that, my crystal ball reflects the burnt orange right now. I think Texas is the team to beat going into this next wave of visits. He's really hit it off. Him and his family have really hit it off with Tashard Choice, Texas running backs coach, who is as good a recruiter as there is in the country right now. Landed the number one running back in 2023 in Cedric Baxter Jr., now trying to go back to the Sunshine State and land Jarrett Gibson here in 2024. And again, I like Texas's position there. Coach Choice was one of the first coaches to offer Jarrett Gibson a scholarship, so they built a really nice connection there. Between Coach Choice and Steve Sarkisian, there's not a program recruiting Gibson harder. He's going to not only take his official visit there the weekend of June 24th, but he's also going back to Texas for their spring game in April. So we have 2 trips to Texas on the radar. And I just think Texas's running back tradition with Bijan Robinson, the latest, that's another nice little caveat there for Texas in this recruitment, just a tradition-rich program with a terrific fan base. I think Texas is doing all the right things in this process, but it's going to be a lot of competition. He's visiting Miami on April 8th. Has officials locked into Georgia the first weekend of June, Alabama the second weekend of June, and Tennessee the third weekend of June. I think Tennessee right now is the other school that I'm keeping a close eye on for Jarrett Gibson, not discounting the other contenders because anything can happen. And I could see Florida maybe slingshotting its way all the way back around and maybe taking this in the end. But right now, I think that Texas is in best position going into the next round of visits. Another one, Grace, that's we're going to get him on campus.
Busy spring for him, and another busy spring for top 10 quarterback Air Noland, the lefty, visiting 7 schools coming up with a decision to come soon after. What are you hearing from him?
Yeah, and he just lit it up at the Under Armour Atlanta event there. Down there in Atlanta, but I feel like we're talking about Air Noland a lot on this show because he is one of the hottest recruits in the country right now, and he has locked in a ton of visits here this spring. He's going to go. His travels begin with Clemson on March 10th. The Tigers have not extended a scholarship yet, but I believe I'd be surprised if they don't coming out of this visit, because not only does Air Noland check the boxes with what he did on the field, throwing for over 4,000 yards as a junior and 55 touchdowns, leading his team to a state championship, but he also has a tremendous personality. You'll probably see an interview with him on the 24/7 Sports Recruiting Show later this week, so you get a feel for the type of young man he is. But he's going to go from Clemson. He's going to go to Arkansas March 13th and 14th, and Coach Pittman and company have had Arkansas in the middle of that recruitment for a long time. He's really hit it off with Coach Pittman, Coach Enos, Coach Smith. He talks to them almost daily. He thinks that offense is one that he could really shine in. And then from Arkansas, he's from Arkansas. He's going to go back to Texas A&M March 27th and March 28th. And he was recently there in January. And Texas A&M, that was an experience that was very enjoyable for him between Coach Fisher and Coach Petrino. He sees a place that'll prepare him mentally for the game as well as physically. Thinks they're fantastic, great coaches. And Texas A&M's no question been high on his list for a long time. Alabama's April 3rd and 4th. He was also there in January where Nick Saban and company offered in person. And so he looks forward to getting back there. And then you have Purdue on April 6th. Ryan Walters and the Boilermakers are making a late push here with Graham Harrell and Coach Keene, guys that have a track record that he likes. And so Purdue will get the last visit of the spring. But Ohio State, they're in there at the end of March 31st through April 1st. And Miami, March 23rd through March 24th. Miami's a program that I think is as well positioned as any of these schools going into this round of visits. Talks often with Coach Cristobal and company. He's really hit it off with Coach Dawson going back to when he was at Houston. Thought that was a great hire for Miami. He's excited to see Coach Dawson wearing the U on his golf shirt. And then Ohio State, they, like Clemson, have not offered yet, but their track record at the quarterback position is very exciting to him, and he's excited to get up to Columbus. So a big round of visits coming up for Air Noland. I kind of like Miami going into him, but no question Texas A&M is also very well positioned amongst that group. Arkansas is a place he's very familiar with, and we'll see if the recent offer from Alabama and maybe new offers from Clemson and Ohio State changes the pulse of this recruitment.
Yeah, another recruit praising the hire of Shannon Dawson at OC for Miami. Another top 10 quarterback we want to get to is Jake Merklinger from Calvary Day in Savannah, Georgia. He's coming off a visit to Chapel Hill in January. He will be returning there in addition to several other visits. So what does his spring look like?
Yep, as we've talked about before on Whiparound, he's going to be back at North Carolina the first weekend of March, which is going to include the basketball game against Duke. He had a great visit to North Carolina in January. He's really hit it off with Chip Lindsey and that Tar Heel staff. Loves Mac Brown, enjoyed going to Mac Brown's house on that visit. So he's going to come back and experience Chapel Hill again and continue to build that rapport with that program. And certainly with what he's seen from Drake May in that offense, it's a very exciting opportunity for him. In addition to North Carolina, he's going to be at Michigan State on March 18th. He's been talking about the Spartans for a while. The Big Ten program is well positioned for him. Georgia's his most recent offer. He's going to spend 2 days in Athens, March 19th and 20th. You cannot discount the in-state program for Jake Merklinger at this point. And then he's going to get back to Tennessee on March 25th. He attended the Vols' victory over Kentucky, had an awesome time, loves the offense, loves Coach Heupel and company. And I think that Tennessee is another program that is in really good position. I think going into this round of visits, I'd probably say North Carolina and Tennessee have really had an opportunity to impress him, but he's very intrigued by Michigan State. The Georgia offer is an exciting one, and he wants to get to Virginia Tech as well. So we'll see what this looks like coming out of the visits.
All right, now let's jump a few years into the future here and introduce everybody to a 2026 quarterback, Julian Lewis out of Carrollton, Georgia. He's been racking up the offers after leading his team to the 7A state championship as a freshman. So who are we watching for Julian Lewis?
Well, Julian Lewis is as talented a quarterback as there is in the country, regardless of grade grace. Threw for over 4,000 yards and 48 touchdowns as a freshman, leading Carrollton to the state championship game. They lost to Caleb Downs and Mill Creek, but what a magical freshman season, and just kind of reminds you of guys like Trevor Lawrence, who had so much success early on. This is a young man that's been on the radar since he was in 7th grade, and sometimes you're just skeptical when people throw middle school quarterbacks at you because more times than not, they don't live up to the hype, but Julian Lewis is living up to the hype and then some, and the best programs in the country are already recruiting the heck out of him. He's going to be back at Georgia on March 16th. He's going to be back at Texas on March 24th. He's going to be back at Alabama on March 30th. He's attended games at all of those places already and is excited about those schools. He was at USC in January. Lincoln Riley offered in person. That was a visit that really moved the needle for him because of Coach Riley's track record at the position and the amount of time that Coach Riley spent with him and his family. They had an awesome time. They're going to get back to USC on April 8th, and then Ohio State. He's going to be there for 2 days for their spring game, the weekend of April 14th. Things have really picked up as of late with the Buckeyes and Julian Lewis here. And so that'll be another program to watch for him as well.
All right, let's go to some specific programs now. Oklahoma coming off a 2023 cycle in which it landed the 4th best recruiting class. No commits yet in 2024, but plenty of offers out there. So Steve, what's next for the Sooners?
Yeah, in Oklahoma, they needed that recruiting class as they try and build this program back up into what they're accustomed to in Norman there. And this is a massive recruiting weekend that's on tap for Oklahoma. OU Insider at oklahoma.247sports.com has a lot of the names that are expected on campus this weekend. 5-star Kobe Black is a name that I'm hearing that could also be at Norman this weekend. The cornerback out of Connolly, Texas there is someone that's extremely coveted, number 3 player in the country at his position. Hearing he could be at Oklahoma this weekend. Jarrett Gibson was trying to get to Oklahoma this weekend, but it wasn't able to work out. But they will have 5-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri from Kansas City on campus this weekend. I think Oklahoma is well positioned for him early in his process, alongside the likes of Oregon and Tennessee, Missouri, of course, Georgia, Colorado, some of the programs he's looking hard at right now. Quarterback Michael Hawkins at one point looked like he was going to end up in the fold for Oklahoma. He's expected this weekend per Parker Thune. They're battling TCU there for Michael Hawkins there out of Frisco. Emerson now played at Allen last year, but top 247 quarterback that Jeff Lebby's built a good relationship with as they battle TCU, among others for him. Some other key names that are going to be at Oklahoma this weekend include Georgia running back commit Tavani Mizell, offensive lineman Grant Bricks, who's had a good experience at Oklahoma before. Defensive end linebacker recruit Dakius Brinkley, offensive lineman Daniel Cruz. Those are all guys that are high on Oklahoma early on right now. Courtney Crutchfield's a safety receiver prospect from Alabama. Top 247 receiver Aaron Hampton's an explosive playmaker from the Lone Star State that they'll try and beat Alabama and Oregon, among others. For LaDainian Fields is an in-state safety, Grace, that not a lot of people are talking about, but he's someone that Oklahoma's high on, and I could ultimately see in the fold for them. And hearing top 247 running back Taylor Tatum could be in Norman as well. So going to be a big list of prospects in Norman this weekend as Brent Venables and company look to pick up some momentum here in 2024.
All right, lots of names to keep an eye on there. Let's go to Baton Rouge, where Brian Kelly is trying to put together back-to-back top 10 classes. Right now, LSU ranks third in the country with 8 commits. 6 of those are 4-star recruits. So, Steve, what can you say about the job that BK and his staff are doing so far?
Well, they're trying to build it back into a national championship program, right? And they did a terrific job recruiting the offensive line last cycle. One of the more under regarded prospects in their class this year is Kyrie Lee, big offensive guard. That's really a tough player at the point of attack. He's a finisher. Now, he's still developing his body physically, but when you turn on the film, he's punishing defensive linemen. He's throwing people around. He's someone that meets the standard to what they recruited last year, which was a big, physical, versatile offensive line group. I think Lee will fit right in with those guys. But it's not the most exciting year at the quarterback position in the 2024 cycle. LSU got one of their top guys in Colin Hurley, who at one point was a 2025. He reclassified to 2024 out of Jacksonville Trinity. LSU had him in camp, and talking to people that saw him throwing camp, he was incredible. I think that, at LSU, they believe his ceiling's high. They like the body of work so far from him, but he's got that ability to push the ball downfield, Grace, which really opens up your offense with so much more if your quarterback can push it downfield. But he's also mobile, probably more so than what you see on film because of his offense. But seeing him in 7-on-7, making throws off platform, I think he brings that element to LSU's offense. And then, look, the jewel of the class is Maurice Williams. He's a guy that I think ultimately grows into a linebacker, but could also play safety. But beyond his athleticism, you talk to people that know his game. He's a football junkie. Really studies the game, and his high football IQ and instincts show up on film. But he's got size, length. He's a tone-setting tackler. Flies around the field, makes a lot of plays. Joseph Stone's a dynamic athlete that's going to play with our buddy Air Noland this year, transferring over there to Langston Hughes. But he's a big play type receiver that is an exciting pickup for LSU. And then Wallace Foster, he's a cornerback that's still developing physically, but we've seen him go up against Aaron Anderson. We've seen him go up against Shelton Sampson in high school, go toe-to-toe with some of the best receivers in the state as a young guy. He's just got extreme confidence to him, bringing that mentality to LSU. So those are some of the guys that I like in the class. This is a LSU. They recruited so nationally with that number 6 class in 2023. I really think that they are focused on crushing it within the 8-hour radius this cycle, being more regional. Certainly they're going to recruit some national kids, but staying in that 8-hour footprint, Dallas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and then in-state, of course. They love Wardell Mack. He's a defensive back in-state. Tylen Singleton is a safety from Mays High that they're extremely high on. I think that they're probably the ones to beat for Kolaj Cobbin. out of Destrehan. Kolaj Cobbins is going to be back in Baton Rouge this weekend for what should be a pretty good recruiting weekend. I have LSU crystal ball for top 247 defensive lineman Charleston Collins. They're still going to work hard to flip Jawan Johnson from Colorado, an exciting in-state quarterback that could play in the secondary, play in the backfield, play at wideout on the next level, return kicks. Kamarian Franklin's a major priority on the defensive line, as is Jamonte Waller at linebacker. Colin Simmons is probably the number one target on the board. My crystal ball is on LSU for him. He's a guy that there's a lot of competition. Had a great visit to Georgia, going to visit Colorado and USC, Arizona State, among other places this spring, Texas A&M. But LSU's is well positioned for Colin Simmons as anybody in the country is right now. And then this big weekend, Xavier Filsame is a top 247 safety that's making his second visit to campus, made it to a game. Terrence Hibbler's a defensive lineman from Mississippi that they really like. Casey Poe's an offensive lineman that's high on the board. We already talked about Cobbins, but four-star safety Cameron Pruitt, they recently offered him and are pushing hard there. I think that they love Joshua Larry. He's a big-time safety target for them. Ahmad Bro is a defensive lineman currently committed to Duke that LSU's bringing in this weekend. And then Parker Livingston's a receiver from the Lone Star State who was a teammate of Kyle Parker, who they signed in 2023. He's visiting this weekend. They're super close. So a lot of exciting 2024s visiting this weekend. The number one quarterback in the country, Bryce Underwood's visiting LSU this weekend in 2025. I think LSU's in a sneaky good position for him, Grace. Joe Sloan's building a great relationship with him. Underwood and his family's high school coaches have been talking about the interest that Bryce has had in LSU for a long time. So I know they're excited to get down to Death Valley and experience that. Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Michigan State, Penn State, some of the other schools that have made an impression on Bryce Underwood. And then Keelan Moses, I have a crystal ball for LSU for him, 2025 athlete that'll also be back at LSU this weekend.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our news updates, which means it is time to Stump Steve. Yeah, if you missed this last week, it's our new segment. We're giving Steve info on top 247 players from past cycles, and we're going to see if Steve remembers where they went to school. Steve, you won an easy 3-0 last week, so we got to make it tougher now.
2-1.
Oh, was it 2? Oh, yeah. The first one, Scooby didn't get that one, but it was close. Okay. Director Jason or producer Lance, let's start with the first one. We got a class of 2020. Here we go. Theo Johnson from Windsor, Ontario. You know where he went, Steve?
Oh, yeah. He went to Penn State, and that was a hell of a recruiting battle with Michigan, among others. But Penn State and Michigan went to the wire for Theo Johnson.
Good job. Yeah, and he's coming off a 2022 season in which he played in 11 games, 328 yards, 4 touchdowns. All right, next we're going to the class of 2019, 4-star wide receiver Puka Nacua from Utah. Where did he go?
Did he go to Washington? That's right. Washington put together some really terrific receiver classes. There was a time where I thought that Washington was kind of like on a similar program trajectory as Clemson with the way Coach Peterson was building his program with his personality and culture, in addition to having some high-profile recruiting wins, but also some high developmental upside recruiting wins. They went to the college football playoff, were never able to really get it going beyond that. But I thought that there was a time where I was right and that Washington was like on a similar trajectory to Clemson. And now, hey, with Coach DeBoer there and company, exciting 11 wins last year. They're bringing back Michael Penix this year. They retained their offensive coordinator who had a lot of interest. Washington's an exciting team going into the fall.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a tricky one because Nacua transferred to BYU. He was one of their most electric receivers of all time, now projected to be a day 3 pick in the NFL draft. All right, let's go further back now. Make this a little bit more difficult. Class of 2018, 4-star defensive lineman Jason Adamilola from Jersey City.
Yeah, he and his twin brother both picked Notre Dame.
Yeah, that was too easy. We need to make this tougher.
Yeah. And Jason's been a guy that's been a difference maker for some really good Notre Dame teams in his career.
Yeah, just wrapped up a 5-year career, 52 games, also projected as a day 3 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. All right, so 3-0. Yeah. 3-0, Steve. We gotta go further back. We gotta go to like
Well,
what? How
Puka
far
was
back?
tough. I just knew it. There's going to be times where I go 0-3.
All right, and we're gonna try to get those because this is not fair. All right, well, good job, Steve. Thank you everybody for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel for recruiting info that you can't get anywhere else. For Steve Wiltfong, I'm Grace Remington. We will see you here pretty soon.